I'm making a horror game where killer scarecrows hunt you down underground beneath a cornfield. The game is called Zardy Maze 2, and it is the sequel to my first game, Zardy Maze. However, you don't have to play the first game in order to play this one. Now, for a while now, I've kept this game a mystery, because we've been developing it for a long time now, actually several years. I started this not long after the original challenge mode update for Zardy Maze 1. So this is a long time coming, and some of you may have seen this trailer. If you haven't, here's the latest teaser trailer right now.
Do you fear me, rabbit? Deep underground, far away from the world you know. A journey with no return. A cool, uncertain. Why don't we play a game? But there's a catch. There's always a catch, rabbit.
So as you can see, this takes place underground, and I have not shown off a lot, and I have not talked about it a lot. However, for this video, I kind of want to explain some things and give you some more details about this horror game and what we've been making behind the scenes. Now, most of the footage in this video will be older, in progress development, so just a heads up. And very quickly to clear something up, for those who don't know, I run both the channels Swanky Box and Horoscoped. We're the same person. Now, I did ask a lot of you to submit questions for this video, whether on the official Zardy Maze Discord, over on Twitter, or even on the YouTube community tab. And while I can't answer every single question, I do want to answer some of them and shed some more light on this game. We'll see if opening the questions to the public was a good idea or a bad idea. Let's begin. Will the characters be getting voice lines or dialogue? Yes, all the characters will be fully voiced, so when they're pursuing you, there are lines they can say, and there'll be cutscenes and dialogue and areas you can find that will get you more of the story through the characters' voices. Is there going to be more objects to collect other than the axe and flashlight? Yes, there will be more things that you can pick up and use. One of these tools is something that you'll utilize a lot in the first chapter, and I really think a lot of you are going to grow to like it. Will there be an Easter egg after you die 69 times? Serious, winky face. This is 100% a feature in Zardy Maze 2. There's also a very high chance that I may be lying. It's the corn. Will this be more story progressive rather than being a challenge game? So I'm going to explain a lot with this question. We're doing something different for Zardy Maze 2. There's going to be both a campaign mode that plays through a longer story, and there's also going to be a challenge mode. But with that said, we're also releasing the game in chapters. Releasing this game in chapters will take a lot of pressure off our shoulders and will make game dev more manageable. Chapter 1 took the longest because we had to establish the majority of the game mechanics, the entire story and layout of all the characters, and the 3D assets and systems needed for all the areas in the game. So every chapter that comes out will include another campaign mode section alongside a handful of new challenges that reflect upon what the player may have learned during that part of the campaign. Will there be any secrets hidden out of bounds for people who want to explore a bit? Oh, of course! For sure, there's going to be secrets for you guys to find. Are Zardy and Pumpkin Jack in a romantic relationship? Asking for a friend. Anyways, moving on. Is the main focus the story or the gameplay? Will it be like the first game in terms of the focus? With Zardy Maze 2, we have to balance it out a bit. So the first game was very focused on the gameplay and the challenge aspect. However, players who were put off by how difficult it was never really got to the other endings, nor do they discover the lore that was hidden within.
Done. Easy.
So with Zardy Maze 2, we need to make it so that it's appealing to all audiences who want to pick up the game, who may have been discouraged by how difficult Zardy Maze 1 was. However, at the same time, we know people liked the difficulty of Zardy Maze 1, so we needed to figure out a way to balance both of these so that players of all kinds will appreciate the game. So the idea is difficulty will scale as you play, in the challenge mode, and the initial challenges will be easier compared to how they were in Zardy Maze 1. On the story mode front, with the actual campaign, the goal will be that any player could hopefully make it through the game without getting stuck, or dying to something that was super difficult. Now, it'll still have difficulties, but we want to create a fair play experience where players of any skill level can enjoy the game. What's the scale of the game when compared to the first? Bigger? It's going to be a lot larger than Zardy Maze 1. The story mode in Zardy Maze 1 wasn't really much more than an isolated challenge that was, I guess, true to the lore. But in this game, the story mode is going to be more so like a campaign mode, taking you all through the underground. New plushies? There are new plushies in the works. Will we finally see D's in the game? I'm actually not sure on the context of this question. Could someone elaborate, perhaps in the comments? Will Zardy Maze 2 be free? No! It will not be free. Zardy Maze 1 was free for PC, but the game still cost a decent amount of money to make. Zardy Maze 2 is a far more expensive project. Basically, my YouTube income is what supplements development costs, and outside of our team members, there's also lots of ancillary costs associated with game development. Subtitle and menu translations, for example, are a bit pricey when you factor in multiple languages across a scripted campaign. So are soundtracks. Telling the story of Zardy and the spooky cast of scarecrows I dreamt up years ago is ultimately what I'd love to do for the rest of my life, through games and other media. But I need to be able to support that dream financially and take care of the people who help me do it. So I hope that makes sense. Does Pumpkin Jack play a big role in Zardy Maze 2? Funny that Pumpkin Jack asked this question. But yes, Pumpkin Jack will play a bigger role in Zardy Maze 2, and it is a character that the player will interact with many times. How much more detailed and complex are the new models? That's a great question. Well, here is the regressor, who produced a mock-up to show you the differences between Zardy Maze 1 and Zardy Maze 2. So the model geometry is about 5 times the detail, the textures are twice as large, so there's more detail there, and the materials now utilize normals and occlusion texture maps for a more detailed appearance. The rigging for the characters is about 90% the same, and there's only really some upgrades with the facial features and how some of the other geometry is painted with that rigging. How different will it be from Zardy Maze 1, the gameplay loop, AI difficulty, etc.? A lot of things are staying similar. However, the gameplay loop is going to be different because it's not always going to be about chopping down giant weeds and going into a hole. Now, the hole may reflect a goal in certain situations, but there may be other things that you have to do. So with that, the player can expect more variety than they did with Zardy Maze 1. What is Full Trek Media? Full Trek Media is a company I started specifically for Zardy-related things. So going forward, all things Zardy will be Full Trek Media. How does Zardy's pathfinding work? How does he not get stuck on walls? So this falls into the realm of Zach, our programmer, and in Zardy Maze 1, we used a star pathfinding project for all of our pathfinding. After a maze is generated, a grid graph is regenerated over it, defining what areas Zardy and others can path through. The paths they generate stick to the grid graph, though they sometimes cut corners. In reality, Zardy and other enemies don't have any physical collisions with the environment. Their pathing and the grid graph are just configured in a way to disguise this. And for Zardy Maze 2, we're using a different pathfinding solution, which I'm not going to go into just yet. Will there be a challenge mode and a custom challenge editor in Zardy Maze 2? So there is a challenge mode, except it's going to work a bit differently than the original challenge mode that was in Zardy Maze 1. So when Chapter 1 of the game launches, there will be a set number of challenges, and as time goes on, through additional chapters, that challenge pool is going to grow quite large. But components from each chapter will then fill in with the challenge mode. Does Zardy like beans? Oh yeah, 100% yeah, no. Have you / the team accidentally jump scared yourself while working on the game? I think many of us can attest on the team that there is a section in the game that has some music that cues that maybe been cued a little too loudly, and it always makes me jump. Of course, that has been fixed, but that section always made me tense because I was never sure how loud it was actually going to be. Will we ever get a good look at our farmer, or will we be stuck with arms / weapons? So the player does have a model this time, but for greater details about the farmer, I suppose you'll have to wait and see as the chapters roll out. He does have some spiffy boots though, not gonna lie. Will the player be able to go up and down in the maze? So yes, Zardy Maze 1 was built on 2D mazes, or I guess maybe that's not the correct term, but it was a flat 3D maze that had one floor. Some of the interesting ideas that we're pushing for Zardy's Maze 2 is 3D mazes that have multiple floors. So the player will be able to go up and down at certain points in these mazes to help them ultimately accomplish the objective and exit the maze. How many challenges are there going to be? A lot? This is just an estimated guess because we don't have them all figured out just yet, but I want to say it's going to be double or more of the original game. Challenge mode is going to be a bit longer in this game. Also, can I customize my character so I'm wearing white pants? Stogie, no! Will the events of the first game be canon to the sequel, or will it just be its separate lore? So the events of the first game are canon to the second game, and the second game takes place right after the first game. In what ways will you try to make your game stand out from other horror games? I can't talk specifically about mechanics that will make us different than other horror games, because I would rather that be a surprise when the game comes out. But I will say Zardy's Maze as a whole has always been about momentum and movement, where a lot of horror games typically kind of make you slow. But with that wraps up our little Q&A session. It would mean the world if you guys would wishlist the game on Steam and check it out. And you can check out the Full Trek Media channel for all things Zardy. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait for you to play this game we've been working on. Cheers!